Russia is planning to strike the Verkhovna Rada. It's only a matter of time, say the MPs. The war could end as soon as tomorrow. Kellogg named the condition under which this could happen. A train carrying ammunition exploded near Kyiv. Locals report about a dozen explosions. An explosion on the railway in Russia stopped military trains carrying reserves to Ukraine. Russia has once again launched drones at NATO. Alarms sounded in Poland and for the first time in Romania. Zapad 2025 is not a drill. Putin and Lukashenko are actually preparing to attack Europe. And a unique attack on Russian UAVs. The defense forces destroyed an enemy drone worth $5 million. Hello, my name is Volodymyr Karaban. Watch the latest news that matters to Ukraine and the world right now. The Russians are preparing a strike on the Verkhovna Rada. It's only a matter of time. This statement was made by Ukrainian MP Ramzan Kostenko. According to the MP, the Ukrainian parliament should already be preparing backup options for where sessions can be held. In his opinion, the murder of former Verkhovna Rada Speaker Andriy Parubiy, a Russian strike on the Cabinet of Ministers building, and a raid, drones over Poland are just links in a single chain, all clearly aimed at democratic institutions and European politicians. That's why a strike on the Verkhovna Rada fits perfectly into this concept.
We have the Verkhovna Rada, the legislative body, which currently has 400 deputies, 200 of whom are elected by majority vote. If a missile hits there during a session, they'll be gone. The party list deputies might step in, but there won't really be a legislative body anymore because you won't even get 126 together. There won't be any kind of coalition, that's it. Let's put it this way, no one would be able to extend martial law, no one would be able to pass any laws, declare mobilization or anything like that. And furthermore, let's say the country would become non-functional.
China can stop Russia's war against Ukraine. In a single day, US Special Representative Kellogg made a sensational statement. According to him, if Beijing stops supporting Moscow, the war will end the very next day. Kellogg noted that if you look at China and Russia, Russia is clearly the junior partner today, since China holds the advantage. The Chinese have economic power, military strength, and historical advantage. I believe that if China cut off its support to Russia, the war would end as soon as tomorrow. Without Chinese support, Russia would not be able to do this, the politician stated. Trump's special representative also added that there is North Korea as well, which also points to the Kremlin's weakness. After all, if Russia were in a strong position, it wouldn't be bringing in thousands of Korean soldiers. At the same time, China still officially maintains a neutral stance regarding Russia's war against Ukraine. Despite its cooperation with Moscow, a number of Chinese companies are also supplying Russia. These are dual-use goods, which in particular can be used for weapons production. Explosions have occurred on the railway in the Kyiv region. Dozens of shipments are being delayed and trains are now rerouted around the damaged section. The first reports of explosions in the region, while the air raid siren was off, were made by witnesses around 11:30 at night. According to them, after a powerful flash, they repeatedly heard the sounds of explosions, as was previously reported in the area of one of the local oil refineries. Later, the publication Zerkalo Tizhnia, citing its own sources, reported that the explosion occurred near the village of Kalinivka. There, shells detonated during transportation by rail. The explosion damaged the contact network. As a result, the Kharkiv-Przemysl passenger train, which was passing nearby, made an emergency stop. Hundreds of passengers were urgently evacuated from the scene to a nearby forest belt. Preliminarily, there are no fatalities. No train cars caught fire has been reported. Meanwhile, explosions on the railway have also occurred in Russia. It is already known that Russian National Guard soldiers have been killed due to the blocked train traffic. In Russia, the cause of the incident is considered to be sabotage. Yes, the incident occurred in the Oriol region. According to the head of the region, Andrei Klishkov, the explosive device was planted directly on the tracks. As reported by the acting governor of the neighboring Kursk region, Alexander Kinstein, 2 Russian National Guard officers were killed and another is in critical condition. It has become known that at least 10 long-distance trains are currently blocked in Russia, including trains belonging to the Russian Ministry of Defense, to Kursk and Belgorod, and in Russia only oil refineries are burning more brightly than the railways. Last night, drones attacked a whole series of Russian oil refining facilities and enemy military-industrial complex sites. In particular, the largest methanol production plant, Metafrax Chemicals, in the city of Glubaka, Perm Krai, was hit. This is a blow to key chemical infrastructure since methanol is used in fuel production, as well as plastics and components important for industry and military needs. By the way, the strike occurred at a distance of over 1,600 kilometers. The Kirishi oil refinery in the Leningrad region was also hit. Governor Alexander Drozdenko reported that 3 drones were shot down in the area of the city of Kirishi, but their debris caused a fire on the premises of the facility. According to him, there were no casualties or injuries. Let me remind you, the Kirishi oil refinery is considered one of the largest in Russia, capable of processing about 20 million tons of oil per year. Earlier, information also began to emerge about a strike on the oil refinery in Bashkortostan, which occurred the day before. It became known that the strike on the plant in Ufa was the work of Ukrainian GUR fighters. According to reports, after kamikaze drones arrived at the facility, powerful explosions rang out and a large-scale fire broke out. And it seems that even across the ocean, the need to put pressure on Russia's oil capabilities is already being recognized. So, Donald Trump is proposing to tighten sanctions on the trade of oil products in the Russian Federation. But he names one main condition.
The US is calling on G7 countries to force India and China to impose higher tariffs on the purchase of Russian oil.
First and foremost, it is important to understand, when analyzing why the sanctions against Russia did not have the expected effect, there is an effect, but more was anticipated. It was because the sanctions were imposed by Western countries, while the countries of the global South did not impose these sanctions, primarily India and China. And then they started thinking about how to get India and China to join in, let's say, in fact, to join the sanctions against Russia. And they decided that this is actually an element of these so-called secondary sanctions, or secondary tariffs, when tariffs are imposed on a country for buying from Russia, energy resource.
By raising the purchase price of oil, the US wants to pressure Moscow to sit down at the negotiating table with Ukraine, according to the Financial Times.
It seems to me that this message is quite far from being realistic. Although, of course, the destruction of Moscow would also benefit us, but that's not an option. There are many problems in this regard, a great many.
Experts note that the US may use Russia's war in Ukraine as a pretext to impose tariffs against India and China.
This is convenient, so to speak, from the US perspective, because they want to do this. From the EU's perspective, they need there to be some pressure on Russia, at least some, but this is a very important point. The reason is Russia, or rather, let's say the reason is that the US wants to impose these tariffs against China and India. Because there's a backstory to this. In April of this year, the US raised tariffs on products from many countries, but this caused a certain problem within the US itself. And many said that you can't do this without a casus belli, without a reason to impose these measures, without a reason for war.
Journalists from the New York Times reminded that in August, the US raised tariffs on imports from India to 50% because of India's purchase of Russian oil. In April, US President Donald Trump sharply increased tariffs on imports from China. But in May, he lowered them after a strong negative market reaction.
Will Trump achieve success ahead of the possible meeting with Zimkin? He might. But theoretically, this could happen at the Apex Summit in the United States, I think on October 30th, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe later. We know that Donald Trump, the schedules of certain events can shift spontaneously, so it's impossible to predict anything for sure.
Free trade is a fundamental principle of the European Union's activities. In fact, the introduction of tariffs contradicts the EU's statutory provisions, which support sanctions against the Kremlin.
There is a need to apply international pressure on Russia, but the principles sometimes differ. The search for this common denominator is ongoing. Whether it will be found, we can only hope. In any case, for us, the economic decline of Russia is extremely important. And the methods by which the West can achieve this decline are quite varied. Right now, they are contradictory.
Economic pressure on Russia is what both the EU and Ukraine need, as Ukraine is holding back the enemy while negotiations are ongoing.
The EU also understands that the existential threat from Russia has not disappeared. And the 23 drones that flew into Poland are the materialization of this threat. So today it's 23 drones, but what will happen in 2 months is unclear. And that's why, of course, Europe can be persuaded to adopt the idea of these secondary tariffs, precisely through the argument about Russia, which is what the US is doing now. If Europe joins in, then China and India might start to wonder whether it's worth buying at all.
It's difficult to replace Russian goods on the market, but it's entirely possible. First and foremost, this requires political will and a desire from Europe.
Air raid alerts in NATO countries. More of them. Not drills. Last night, Romania and Poland were once again forced to hunt Russian drones in their own skies. Yes, the day before, for the first time since the war began, Romania and Poland jointly declared an air raid alert due to the threat of Russian attack drones. Drones entered the territory of both NATO countries. In particular, the Romanian Inspectorate for Emergency Situations sent a warning for the northern part of Tulcea County about the possibility of objects falling from the airspace. The same situation occurred in Poland. Around 1915, an air raid alert was declared in the east of the country. Later, information emerged that a drone had indeed entered Romanian territory, and a crew was even scrambled to intercept it, F-16. But they couldn't shoot down the drone anyway, and they didn't dare to. After flying about 10 kilometers deep into the country, the drone disappeared from the radars. According to President Zelensky, it spent almost an hour in Romanian airspace. Details regarding the Polish interception of the attack are currently being clarified.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
Zapad 2025 is not actually an exercise, but a rehearsal for an attack on NATO countries. The main scenario being considered is an attack on the Suwałki corridor and a forceful breakthrough of a corridor to Kaliningrad. This is reported by the publication Bild. Journalists are certain, first and foremost, the Russian and Belarusian dictators have a propagandistic goal during the large-scale nuclear exercises. They aim to intimidate their neighbors. According to analysts, while Russia claims it is practicing the defense of Kaliningrad in Belarus, in reality it is rehearsing an attack on NATO in the region. After all, to defend Kaliningrad, the occupiers would have to advance from Belarus through the Suwałki corridor. A land bridge between Belarus and Kaliningrad, only about 610 kilometers wide, which belongs to Poland and Lithuania. This same concept also includes the recent deployment of Iskander tactical missile systems to the Kaliningrad region. Analysts have already calculated that as a result of such a maneuver now within the radius, their range now covers 6 NATO countries: Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Sweden, and Germany. But there's another ally of Putin who always eagerly... Cyprus has taken part in all of the Kremlin's crimes, but when it comes to trying to threaten Europe, it seems it won't be of help anymore. Ramzan Kadyrov is preparing to meet his maker and is already on his deathbed. He has stopped appearing in public and is carefully concealing the state of his health. However, journalists have managed to uncover the truth.
Kadyrov's health is no longer what it used to be. It has started to deteriorate rapidly, and this instantly affected the appearance of Putin's vassal. From being athletic, muscular, and self-assured, Kadyrov has turned into a helpless, constantly tired and sick old man. The head of Chechnya has been seriously ill for several years, as evidenced by his unhealthy appearance and regular disappearances from the public eye. He stopped working out, which had always played a big role in his image, and started wearing looser, baggier clothes.
That's why he has to hide his true condition and maintain an illusion, even though no one believes anymore that he is still capable of running the republic. In reality, of course, he is not. He is absolutely incapable of running the republic, but he continues to cling to his seat just like many other dictators do.
At the beginning of August, Chechen television showed the head of the republic inspecting the progress of construction in a district of Grozny. In the footage, he was mostly standing, but when he did move, he did so slowly and stiffly. Moreover, the report was dominated by shots of the construction itself, not of Kadyrov, which is very uncharacteristic for him. After all, Don always used to love being the center of attention.
Assalamu alaikum, it's us again. Life is interesting. Life can be really interesting sometimes.
Here's another example that things aren't going well for Kadyrov. On September 1st, he visited the Grozny Education Center. He could barely move at all.
He couldn't. His successor, his son Adam, and accordingly he can no longer hold on to the main symbols of power with his now severely weakened hands.
The head of Chechnya, who was diagnosed with pancreatic necrosis 6 years ago, cannot come to terms with his illness and the limitations it imposes. He has repeatedly ignored doctors' orders. And due to feeling unwell, Kadyrov nearly drowned at a resort in southwestern Turkey.
As long as he is alive, the Kremlin is not deciding to force him to resign, because today the Kremlin already has too many problems. Then getting another problem in Chechnya is absolutely not in Putin's interests today. Therefore, as long as he lived, he would continue to remain at least formally at the helm.
In August, Kadyrov held only one meeting and only one meeting in his office. But not only because of health problems. Don already...
Taking any further action regarding the Chechens is simply unnecessary at this time. The current situation is stable and all relevant concerns have already been addressed appropriately. Additional measures or interventions would not provide any meaningful benefit and could even complicate matters. Therefore, it is best to focus resources and attention elsewhere, as no further steps are required in relation to the Chechens. Ramzan Kadyrov has a curator. Ramzan Kadyrov has certain boundaries that he cannot violate, and the Federal Center fulfills this role of curator, owner, and promoter of the Kremlin's will on the territory of the Chechen Republic and throughout the North Caucasus.
Simply put, Kadyrov doesn't have much time left. His rule is apparently coming to an end.
You can even go beyond the borders of Chechnya, for example. Ramzan Kadyrov is involved in many criminal cases. Ramzan Kadyrov is involved in many fraudulent schemes that have passed through Chechnya over the past 20 years. In fact, he's not even a necessary witness. The Kremlin?
According to the Institute for the Study of War, the death of the Chechen dictator or his removal from office, if it happens during or immediately after the end of the war in Ukraine, could leave Putin's interests in the North Caucasus unprotected unless a suitable successor is appointed.
Russian air defense has run out. Moscow is asking Ankara to buy back the S-400 systems that it sold in 2017. This is reported by the Turkish publication Nefis. In particular, journalists have found out that Russia approached Turkey with a proposal to return 2 S-400 surface-to-air missile systems, which Turkey purchased in 2017 for $2.5 billion. The reason for this initiative is said to be a shortage of these systems in Russian stockpiles and a growing demand for them from third countries. In Turkey, the systems were not integrated into NATO structures, and the shelf life of their missiles has already reached half of the designated lifespan. In addition, they require maintenance, which creates extra costs for the Turkish side. It is reported that due to the successful operations of the defense forces, particularly against the crews of these air defense systems in Crimea, there are currently no ready complexes in Russia's reserve apart from those already in use. There are none. The armed forces of Ukraine reported that they shot down a Russian drone worth several $1 million. This was reported on Telegram by the commander of the Unmanned Systems Forces, Robert Porubia. We are talking about the Orion Strike Reconnaissance UAV. The drone, which in terms of size is more reminiscent of a small airplane, weighs over a ton and is designed for visual, radar, or radiotechnical reconnaissance with the capability for prolonged patrolling in a designated area. Its operational range is about 300 kilometers, and the approximate cost of this Iron Bird is over $5 million. Meanwhile, Ukraine, while shooting down enemy drones, is also not forgetting to develop its own. Yes, final tests are underway. A unique drone is currently undergoing testing. As an interceptor, its operation is based on artificial intelligence. What advantages will it provide to the defense forces, and when might it appear in the military? We'll tell you about that right now. New technologies, new challenges. Artificial intelligence, having already conquered advanced gadget users, is now being fully utilized in warfare as well. Today, practically no modern drone is produced without this technology. Ukrainians, of course, are among the leading UAV designers. Yes, our developers are already testing it extensively, a new interceptor drone. The Ukrainian company Varta is working on implementing an autonomous system for detecting and tracking enemy reconnaissance UAVs and FPV drones for interceptor drones based on artificial intelligence.
In particular, components of the artificial intelligence system are indeed already being used in the war, which Russia has unleashed against Ukraine. Ukraine is defending itself with technologies that help save human resources, especially when we talk about time. Ukraine is defending itself by using technological components that allow for maximum efficiency in the operation of those same drones. In the final meters, the drone targets precisely, even when control over the device is already being lost.
It is reported that the drone will be called Varta Dozor A1 and is already undergoing its final phase of testing. Its main task will be to destroy Russian strike UAVs, which are launched daily at peaceful cities in Ukraine.
We're talking about Jiran, Gerber Parody, and other drones. Overall, as of today, Russia can produce and use between 5,000 and 6,000 such drones per month. The largest attack we've seen so far involved up to 500 drones. But in order to carry out such an attack, the Russians needed at least 3 to 4 days to accumulate them.
It has been stated that the Dozor A1 will be able to independently detect and destroy enemy FPV and reconnaissance UAVs, even under countermeasures, electronic warfare. That is, the drone can be used directly on the line of contact, where it only needs to last for literally every minute, since Russia has significantly increased its use of drones lately.
After striking the enemy aircraft, the drone detonates with its own shrapnel, destroying the enemy drone.
However, drone warfare, as they say one-on-one, still allows for the possibility of a miss. No matter how hard artificial intelligence tries, some Russian drones are also equipped with countermeasures. That's why engineers are already working on improving the Dozor AODN.
According to the publication Militarny, there are also plans to integrate with situational awareness systems in the future, in particular with the Delta system. If implemented, in the future this will allow a single operator to control a group of 5 to 7 interceptors, creating the concept of a so-called small sky air defense segment, where interceptor drones will play a key role.
Russian designers are also trying to catch up with our engineers. One of the enemy's new developments is the BM-35 kamikaze drone. A video of its use in the center of Sumy recently appeared online. Our experts are still studying the characteristics of this UAV. It is unknown what kind of warhead it can be equipped with. However, the lawnmower engine and the propeller drive system indicate that the drone does not fly far and will not be used against military targets. And it was apparently designed specifically to terrorize civilians in frontline.
In cities, considering their diverse values, including those of male transgender individuals and those who may be considered adversaries, we need to be very careful in making an assessment of JAMO and the use of elongated equipment on the territory of the Russian Federation may occur. Russia may circumvent sanctions to produce prototypes. It cannot circumvent sanctions when it comes to production lines, to the need to manufacture 1,000 units. They demonstrate an inability to produce drones independently.
This thesis was confirmed by the results of Ukrainian experts who examined the remains of the BM-35 at the site of impact. How? In summary, about half of the components are of foreign manufacture. The drone's design contains at least 41 foreign components, including ones from Switzerland, the USA, and Taiwan. At the same time, most of the parts come from China. According to analysts, one of the significant levers of influence on the situation could be the strengthening of US and European sanctions, as well as stricter enforcement of existing restrictions. After all, the more Russian loopholes are closed, the fewer drones there will be. As a result, it will rain down on the heads of Ukrainians, so at the same time we need to develop our own technologies so that for every new terrorist attack the Russians receive an adequate response. With that, I say goodbye to you. More news will be in the 4 p.m. broadcast. In the meantime, be sure to leave comments under this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to our channel to learn even more.